Hello friends, today I'm going to talk about XPath. What is the XPath? XPath is one of the identifier that the identifier that Selenium provided you so that you can find it using its expression. XPath is meant by XML path language. Okay. So when you try to find the web element, when you try to work with the web elements, then you have options, various options like find by ID, find by name, find by class name. These are the things that are actually provided for you when the time it was developed. The web application is developed for you before you start your test, right? But there will be some instances where you might have to struggle to find those elements, and those purpose XPath is just being helpful for you, right? So you can have various expressions of XPath you can use in order to identify the web elements. In your day-to-day activities, you might have to struggle with some of like a toughest element which does not have any IDs, does not have any names. So you might want to go with the following attributes, right? You might want to go up above at the tree level, right? Parent level. Or you might have some instances that you have an ID, but then it has these IDs are dynamically created. Then you might want to use some of the expressions like it starts with or ends with. Sometimes you can get these things hard-coded, and again, don't struggle too much on the dynamic element, request for getting these ID or names hard-coded so that you don't have to struggle too much, and those are pretty simple and possible stuff that you could request. So let's say you are in this page, right? So there are so many text boxes, and in this case this has everything ID or name provided, so I could easily go in and then find element by name, and I can identify these elements. But there will be some instances where you don't have those, so you have to write them up. Okay, so let's go with that, how we could identify these elements and how we could work with that. Okay, so let's say I go there, try to find this drop down, right? So it has a select ID. Just assume that you don't have select ID here, or not even name. Then you want to go with something called just tag name. That's all you have it available. Then let's go with that, how you could do those, right? We're going to work with those type of attributes. So I have an ID here. I'm going to show you one by one. So let's say you have an ID and you want to use the XPath. You don't have to. When you have ID or name, just simply use that find element by name or ID. Okay, so here I have driver dot find element by dot XPath, right? So here, before that, I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I'm extending this driver. I have a test here inside this class. This driver, I'm going to call this driver method here. I have a before runs this step before the test, and it launches me the URL, right? I have a after. I'm not using that so that I can show you before the browser closes. So I have this driver method here that is going to generate me the driver instance, and it will launch me the new Chrome browser. Okay, I have other video that explains more on how you set this up. So let's focus to XPath. So XPath, first thing is you see my CSS selectors, how to use CSS selector. This time it's XPath. So XPath you have to use always with the double slash. Okay, so double slash, what the double slash is, double slash means it's absolute path, right? So what do you do, so which means you start from the tag, right? So again, you have to either say anything, or you would simply tell what tag number you want, so what tag name you want. So let's say you want to do with something called this selector, right? This selector is a select, so I'm going to put the select tag. So here select, and then you start with a square bracket. In this square bracket, you tell what attributes you have available. So inside the select tag, you have ID or name. You could use either ID or you could use name. Okay. So here that starts with @ID equals single quote. The value goes inside the single quote, and then you close this square bracket, and then you close this double quote for entire XPath, and then you close this. Okay, that's how you do the XPath. And let's say you want to use that with the name. How you do? So if you have a name, same thing. Instead of ID, you would do the name. @name equals single quote. This one space you can keep space, you cannot keep space. It's up to you. It doesn't harm. Okay, you can keep one space. It's fine. It just makes your code much cleaner and looks readable, right? So these are pretty common things. So let's say you have a class name, right? So class name, what do you do? Instead of select, you can do just class. Then it will tell that class name, assuming that exists. In this case, there's no class name called this. Next thing, instead of select, let's say that is the text field. Okay, so text field will have input. It's called input. Input is the text field. Or let's say you have a button, right? Button is a tag. Okay, or this is the select, that's a drop down. Or you could have something called tag name as A. A is for link text. Okay, right? So here, these are the link text. I'm going to go with the link text later, or very early, right? Let's say you want to identify by link text. What do? You don't do this whole thing. You just do text, and then do this, right? And then not this, but you do this. So what do you do here? You could give that text name. So it could be, let's say that is the link text you want to click, and then it is going to identify this field as a link text if this was the XPath. If you are not doing the XPath way, you would just do the by.link text and only provide this thing inside the double quote, right? And then let's say you want to do input. Okay, or you have simply a tag. What do? You do A, and then maybe you want to just go by the class name or whatever attribute you have, name, ID, whatever you have available, right? And then you are telling this. What's the next? You may just want to use anything that has an ID equals. Okay, so this ID here, I have an asterisk. With the asterisk, it will tell that anything that has an ID as a customer currency, I'm going to go for it. Okay, so these are the ways you would find as long as they have it available for you. So these are called single attribute identifier in the XPath. Okay, these all have only single identifier. You are just giving this tag name's class, this tag name's name or ID or class, or any tag name with the ID having this, any tag name. That's what it means. It means take everything as a whole. Okay, so let me put that a link text here. Okay, what's next? Let's go to one more step using the XPath. Okay, so in the XPath, what do you want to do? You want to use multiple attributes. Okay, with the multiple attributes, what you can use as, you can give not only this, let's copy up to this part, Now let's get this more, not specific, but just get any tag that has, let's say, let's copy this thing, id equals, click here, and then I can give @name equals name value, whatever name is, and then I'll just give that here. So this will take two conditions. If only two conditions are true, that's what it is going to do. Okay, you could give, and also here you can remove these two lines and just write and. What do you do next? You could do or, instead of and you can do or. Okay, so basically what here, you have multiple conditions, right? Not only single value. Same thing here, id equals, click here, right? Usually IDs are not spaced. I'm just going to write that with here. Click here, ID. Let's say that as ID. And I'm just giving ID as an example. Okay, it could be class name. Okay, it could be class name, and having multiple different class name with the identifier, so that you can find out. Sometimes what happens, you might not just go with the ID because those are some repeated or some are, right? So you take that and then you say, oh, let that be there, and then okay, so that is a multiple attributes. This is the AND operator and this is the OR operator. Okay, so those are called two parameters, like two or multiple conditions in the XPaths. What is next? What do you want to do? Sometimes you want to deal with the contains. Okay, what is the contains? So contains is let's put the expression here. Contains is something like you are inside here. Let's put that the first expression, and then I should write contains, right? And then inside the parenthesis, what I have to write here is, now I can do the attribute name. So for example, it is ID, comma, I can do my ID val. Maybe there is some like a dynamic condition that has a dynamic locator that has some value after this, like this is changeable, and I don't want to take that part because it is changing every time. So I want to just take the part which is the like the fixed one, right? So all I said is, I don't care where this value is, in what position. It may be 4, 5, 6, or it could be after this, but I just want to make sure only this piece is there, then take that as my element. So it is taking partial value identifier of the ID, right? So that's what I want here. And then what I do, after I do that, I'll just give this value, and then I said put that there, and then I just want to close this guy here. Okay, so here square bracket closes here, contains ID equals that. Okay, here you could give any tag name if you want. So for example, button, or you could do A, or you could do input. It's the same thing. Okay, so what is next? So usually these are the things that you would use for multiple conditions. Those are repeated. These are the things, those are unique. You really don't need to use this because those are ID provided, and if they are not repeated, you don't have to, right? Even if it is, you have a single attribute, just use by ID, just use by name. You don't have to call the XPath for that. And then next thing is, you have a driver dot find element with the multiple arguments. Here are multiple arguments, and you can use and, you could use or, and then you come here with the XPath. I have input contains, this is the tag name, contains @ID, saying @ID, comma, or @ID equals the same thing, and then you can give this value here. This is in the single quote the value, whatever ID you want to validate to, and then give this parenthesis close, square bracket close, and then your code closes. Okay, so that is called contains. Now what's next? Now we have something called starts with. So there's one thing called starts with. Instead of contains, you do starts hyphen with, starts with, and then you just do id my val. Okay, same thing then. Contains starts with. Only the thing different is contains to starts with. You could do the same thing with ends hyphen with, starts with, ends with, right? Starts with, ends with. And then here, if you see, these three things are mostly needed when you want to deal with dynamic elements. So what the dynamic element is, sometimes what happens is if you go to yahoo.com, right? If you go to yahoo.com, your ID for clicking email, right? Email link is defined like this. Right? What do you call it? href equals something like that, and then you have id equals something something, and then id equals, you have like, you know, email 08045334, and then like numerous number like this. So here, and if you see this, there are certain things that are static, which means those are not changing, but rest of the things are changing, dynamically changing. So every time the browser launches new time, it is going to give you the new value. So the problem happens is you are trying to identify this element thinking that this is your ID, and next time it loads, this is not available. That's why you don't want to rely on that dynamic part. So you want to take whatever value that remains unchanged. So that's what you want to use, because you cannot have a parcel ID like a parcel link text. So you have to use something called XPath or CSS selector, which says starts with. Okay, or you could use contains, and if you have a contains, you don't care where this value is, but starts with is more specific, that says it has to start with this value. Contains will pass even if this value is in front. All it matters is this value is there as an ID. That's all contains cares about. And ends with is the same thing. So ends with has to validate this value is at the end. Okay, there's so three conditions you could use, and if it is, you know, because it's a locator, it is not the actual value that UI presents. Those are the development, like HTML codes. So you don't really rely on, you know, more details unless you have something repeating, you know. Just go with the contains if that is the case, right? Okay, so these are the things. So and next few things I want to talk about is how you would define the position or the index, right? So for example, what happens is you have some table and you have to define that certain cell. So what do you do? Driver dot find element by dot xpath. Those are the xpath, right? Inside that, what I'm going to put here is, because it's a table will have a tag as a table. Okay, and I'm going to put here as attribute ID. Obviously I might have some ID or some locators for table, right? Table ID, right? And then I will close here. Table will have some body called T body. Those are also the tag name for table. That means not the header piece, but the body. That's where you need your data for. And then you will have a TR tag. TR tag means a row, right? So row, you want to tell which row. Then you could put here, let's say you want to do the second row, and then you will have a TD as a cell. This means the cell, table data. TD is the table data. That's the cell. And let's say you want to go with a fourth cell, right? So these are the things you will have to define. So what this is means as this is called position or index. You give the index number for this TD and then it will read explicitly that cell. Okay, so you will have to sometimes work with the tables and you might want to use this. So in this case this is the position. So when you use your XPath would be like, right, tag name, right, and then your ID identifier, whatever it is, and then whatever if it is followed by, right, and then you do, let's say TD, or let's say you have input, let's say you have a text field, something you want to do second input, like that would be your code. Okay, so what's the next thing is I want to talk about is following siblings. Those are very important. So let's say you have, let's copy this part, let's say you have, these are called, so following siblings. So for example, you have some XPath that has some value. Let's not put this starts with anymore. I'm just going to put ID equals my value. So this is the ID I have, right? Then this is the ID I have, but I don't have information for exact text field or some field that I want. For example, I have an ID for this, but I don't have ID for the second field, last name field, right? If I don't have the field, the last name field, I need to go with the first field and following field for the last field, right? So what I would have to do here is I would have to do that as right, I would do like 1/ following double colon here, okay, double colon, no space, and then whatever tag name, that would be input tag, right? So I'll just put input, right? So then what it does is let's say this is the first name ID, and then this will literally take you to the last name tag. So this XPath is going to represent the whatever input field that is followed by this ID. For example, that may not have an input field, that may have a button as a tag. So you give the tag name here, okay, you give the tag name. So let's say you have a drop down, so what do you do? Select. So those are called the following. There are sometimes you want to use this one also, okay. So single slash and double slash, those are different, okay. So when you have a single slash, those are called just following, so which means it is going to go with the next field. But if you have a condition where it is like a parent-child relation, then you want to go with this. So let's say you have a parent label and then the one with the child. So if you come here and if you see here like this, select is the entity of this header class, right? If you minimize that select is gone. So you come here, if you want to, let's say, get this guy and you don't have ID for select, right? Then let's say you have ID for only this, or class name for this. When you write for this select within the same child, you will have to write like this. So that is a class, right? Class, and then that class is this, and that is followed by double slashes, okay, double slashes for sibling with the select tag. Then it will tell you that select tag identifier, okay. If you have this one, if you want to do something, then what it will do here is, if you, let's say you want to do header upper with a single slash, instead of finding so that is, I guess, customer currencies here. Instead of finding this header upper as a customer currency, instead of having this drop down, it would come here and get the first drop down from the day, because that's no longer part of single slash, right? So that's a single slash, which means it's not this, right? It will go for the next select item from that div. So it will completely get out of this guy, okay. And we quite spent time here, and then so let's go to quick recap what we covered and what we did. Okay, so these are with the single simple expressions, right? You have ID, name, class name, all you have a select, input your tag name here, or you could use as a general anything that has ID as a customer currency, just get that. Or you want to go with a link text, tag is a text is click here, right? Or you want to click some button with the label, right? You can just do, instead of a, I can just give button text, right? This guy text equals click button. Okay, so this is just a tag based, right? You don't have find element by button text, right? In that case you have to come to XPath and write like this. So those are called a label. Label expression, I just gave them up. And you have a multiple condition here with and or multiple attributes. And then you have here contains, usually just say dynamic expressions, because you are using contains, starts with, ends with. This one's called like a position, right? Position expression. So you are giving like this cell number, index number, based on that it is going to identify that element by providing index. And then this is the following or following sibling. So if it is within the same category, those would be siblings, and if it is outside, those would be those following expressions. So let's get this quick full view, and then I hope this has been really helpful for you in order to write the XPath. So you know, do a quick recap here. So there are the expression you would do double slashes. You can never leave this field empty. Okay, this will be invalid XPath expression. You can never leave that. Either put asterisk or put some tag name. Cannot be empty. That would be your first fail. And then you start with the right square bracket, and you know, give whatever attribute you have. Okay, I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you really enjoyed, and you will feel more comfortable watching this video using the XPaths when needed. Thank you for watching my video, and please continue to watch and like my videos and subscribe my channel. Thank you.